What if everything you've been taught about winning is wrong? Not just slightly off, not just outdated, but completely inverted. You were told that success belongs to the ones who try harder, stay later, push further. That victory is earned through blood, sweat, and relentless hustle. But what if that belief is the very thing keeping you stuck? What if real power doesn't shout, doesn't chase, doesn't even move the way you were taught? There is a hidden edge, a kind of influence that doesn't need to assert itself to be felt, a presence that doesn't strive to win, yet never loses. And those who wield it, they don't look like conquerors. They're calm, silent, effortless, often misunderstood. You know someone like that. The person who walks into a room and shifts the energy without saying a word. The one who never fights, but always gets what they want. The one who seems immune to desperation, to noise, to the exhausting game everyone else is playing. They win without trying. It doesn't make sense, does it? How can not trying be more effective than effort? How can stillness hold more sway than motion? The logic you've been conditioned to trust begins to crack under the weight of those questions. Because beneath the surface of what you've accepted as truth, there is something deeper, something older, something Machiavelli understood centuries ago. He whispered it through the pages of The Princely, truth about power that no one wants to say out loud. That influence isn't earned by working harder, it's earned by understanding how people move, and how stillness, when timed perfectly, moves the world. So if you're tired of trying, of grinding, of chasing outcomes that slip through your fingers the moment you grip tighter, maybe it's not your effort that's failing. Maybe it's your framework, because the most dangerous edge is the one you never see coming. And the ones who master it, they never need to announce themselves. They already won the moment they stopped trying. You try, you push, you burn, and yet nothing moves. You wake up every day with a silent weight on your chest. Not from failure exactly, but from something worse effort without return. You follow the rules, show up on time, give more than is asked. You respond when you don't want to. Say yes when every part of you is screaming no. And still, the recognition, the breakthrough, the peace you chase, stays just out of reach. It's exhausting, isn't it? The constant performance, the endless becoming, always reaching, never arriving. You've been told it's just a phase, that eventually hard work pays off, that the world notices. But the truth is, most days you feel unseen. Not because you're invisible, but because you're wrapped in a kind of silence no one knows how to listen to. You smile when you're tired, laugh when you're breaking, stay quiet when you should speak. And deep down, a part of you wonders, is this it? Is life supposed to feel like an endless audition for approval you never really wanted? You're not weak. You're not broken. You're just drained from carrying the weight of expectations that were never truly yours. From trying to win in a system that was never built for you to rest, only to perform. And here's the part no one tells you: this isn't just happening in your job, your relationships, or your goals. It's happening in your soul, that subtle erosion of joy, that quiet grief of always doing and rarely being. You move, you grind, you hope. But under it all is a question you're afraid to ask out loud. What if trying is the very thing that's holding me back? Not because trying is wrong, but because in the world you live in, effort without alignment becomes a trap. You run faster, not realizing the treadmill was never designed to end. You give more, not realizing the cup you pour into has no bottom. And at some point, even the most determined hearts begin to ask, how much of this is me choosing, and how much is me surviving? That's not laziness. That's awareness knocking. And once you hear it, nothing about the old game will ever feel the same. There is a kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It doesn't need to, because its presence alone is enough to rearrange the room. Machiavelli knew this. He saw through the illusion of effort, the theater of control. In a world obsessed with dominance, he whispered a truth most weren't ready to hear. The appearance of power is more powerful than power itself. Not power in the way most imagine it. Not brute force, loud commands, or desperate displays, but a quiet force. One that flows beneath the surface, invisible, undeniable. The kind that bends others without ever needing to touch them. He didn't speak to the crowd. He wrote for those who could read between the lines. Those who understood that real influence isn't taken. It's shaped, crafted, pulled from the tension between presence and restraint. Think of it. The person who never begs, who never over-explains, who never rushes to prove themselves. And yet somehow, people listen. They lean in. They want to understand more. That is the essence of subtle influence. Machiavelli didn't teach manipulation. He revealed how perception, not action, rules the world. How restraint, not aggression, is often the true form of control. How those who hold back often hold more. It is not about playing games. It's about understanding the rules most don't even see. And when you do, you no longer need to move loudly. Your stillness becomes strategy. Your silence becomes signal. This is the whisper he left behind. A whisper that slips past logic and lands somewhere deeper in instinct, in presence, in the energy you bring without even trying. So ask yourself, what if power has nothing to do with doing more? What if your edge was in doing less? Machiavelli would not answer that directly. He never did. But if you read closely, if you listen carefully, you'll hear what he always meant. Control is not about force. It's about space. And those who master space master everything. Power at its core is psychological. It is not about size, not about volume. It's about perception. Influence begins in the mind specifically, in the minds of others, and the most enduring power is not what is declared. It is what is assumed. Machiavelli understood this, but so did the great psychologists centuries later. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unconscious part of the psyche, where all our fears, insecurities, and unspoken desires hide. What remains in the dark controls us. And that truth applies not only to individuals, but to entire systems of control. When someone holds power through silence, what they are doing is activating that shadow space in others. They offer no clear signal, no reassurance, no threat, only mystery. And the human brain, wired for pattern and meaning, fills in the blanks, often projecting more authority, more danger, or more charisma than is really there. That's the art of perceived dominance. Not by domination, but by suggestion. You've seen it. The leader who rarely speaks, but when they do, everyone listens. The person who never explains themselves, and in that restraint, becomes untouchable. Their silence creates tension. Their absence creates desire. And the space they leave, it becomes a canvas for the imagination of others. In politics, this is strategy. In psychology, it is projection. But in real life, it's the edge. Very few people see because most are too busy trying to be understood, too desperate to be seen, too afraid of being misinterpreted. And in that desperation, they become predictable, controllable. The one who resists the urge to react, to clarify, to prove that person becomes the unknown. And the unknown is always more powerful than the known. Why? Because when people can't define you, they can't confine you. You slip past their expectations. You trigger something deeper. Curiosity, a caution, a respect rooted not in what you've done, but in what they think you could do. Shadow power is not the absence of light. It's the mastery of it. It's the ability to decide what you reveal and what you let others imagine. And in a world addicted to noise, the one who commands attention without speaking becomes the most dangerous presence in the room, not because they are loud, but because their silence dares you to look deeper. And once that happens, control is no longer taken. It's given voluntarily, unconsciously, completely. You're not weak. You're overexposed. You think the problem is you, that you're not focused enough, not disciplined enough, not strong enough, but maybe you've just been pulled in too many directions, touched by too many voices, measured by too many eyes. Every moment, your mind is caught in a loop. Dopamine hits from likes, replies, recognition, and yet none of it satisfies. Because you're not wired to live in constant reaction. The truth is, you were never supposed to be this available, this visible, this emotionally accessible to people who haven't earned a place in your world. And still, you're expected to perform, to explain, to answer, to shine. But each time you do, a piece of you goes missing. It's not that you failed, you just played a rigged game. One where your worth is tied to how quickly you respond, how agreeable you appear, how tirelessly you stay connected. But behind the scenes, that game is designed to keep you emotionally enslaved, to train you to chase approval, to seek validation in every scroll, every message, every glance. You call it social media, but it's more than that. It's a system. One that feeds on your attention and gives you just enough in return to keep you addicted. Not to pleasure, but to hope. Hope that one day you'll be seen fully, that someone will finally understand you, appreciate you, choose you. But no one can truly see you if you're always trying to be seen. That's the paradox. And it runs deeper. You've been taught that presence equals relevance, that if you disappear for even a moment, you'll be forgotten. But the most magnetic people in the world aren't the most present. They're the most precise. They know when to show up and when to vanish. You are not tired because you lack power. You are tired because your power has been leaking into spaces that do not deserve it. Your energy was never meant to be broadcast. It was meant to be sacred, held, directed, chosen. So, maybe it's time to stop blaming yourself. Maybe your fatigue isn't failure, it's wisdom. A silent revolt from the parts of you that know this isn't sustainable. The game isn't broken, it was built this way. And the moment you realize that is the moment you stop trying to win it and start choosing whether to play at all. So what happens when you stop trying? Not give up, but truly stop trying. Stop forcing. Stop performing. Stop needing your existence to be justified by results. Something begins to shift. You return to a kind of stillness most people have forgotten. Not passivity, not resignation, but a grounded, unshaken stillness. A place where clarity lives. Where your energy is no longer scattered, but centered. Where your presence no longer begs, it commands. You begin to be rather than to prove. This is not about detachment or arrogance. It's about a deeper embodiment, a knowing that doesn't need to convince anyone. Because when you are rooted in who you are, you don't chase influence. You become the reference point. Think about the last time someone walked into a room and said nothing but everyone noticed. That wasn't charisma. That was alignment. That was presence functioning as force. And the truth is, this energy has always been inside you. It just got buried beneath layers of trying to fix, trying to heal fast, trying to be enough. But now you remember that power doesn't come from movement, it comes from intention. From standing still when everything around you spins in chaos. From being the one who doesn't flinch, who doesn't rush, who doesn't chase. Because the moment you stop chasing is the moment everything begins to shift in your direction. Not because the world changed, but because your frequency did. So here's the question. Can you stay silent and still when the world demands noise? Can you hold your center when everyone else scrambles to be seen? Can you stop trying and start choosing? Because the edge you're looking for is not out there. It's already inside you, waiting for the noise to die down so it can finally speak. There are two kinds of people in every room. The first is easy to spot. They try. You can feel it. In their voice, in their posture, in how quickly they speak, how often they smile, how tightly they hold on to being liked. They work hard to be seen, to be understood, to be approved, and they often are, but only briefly, because effort leaves a residue, and the more someone tries to hold attention, the faster it slips away. Then there's the second kind. They don't need to be seen, but they are. They don't need to speak first, but when they do, people lean in. They don't dominate space. They define it quietly, precisely, without force. This is not accident. It is mastery, a kind of tactical invisibility, a choice to be present without demanding presence, to move without noise, to hold power without needing to prove it. This is not about doing nothing. It's about doing less, better. It's about knowing when to surrender not from weakness, but from strategy, strategic surrender. A willingness to not chase what comes easily when you stop chasing. A refusal to beg for what loses value the moment it must be begged for. You can feel the difference. The one who tries is tense, eyes darting, energy scattered. They're always adjusting, calculating, adapting. They are driven by the fear of being left behind. The one who does not try stands still, calm, poised. They know that gravity doesn't chase, it attracts. This is poised dominance. The power to influence without effort, to lead without volume, to captivate without selling yourself. It doesn't come from books or charisma or learned behavior. It comes from one thing, inner congruence, when who you are, what you believe, and how you act all align. Machiavelli understood that to appear powerful is often more effective than to be powerful. But the ones who no longer need even the appearance, they become untouchable, not because they hide, but because they have nothing left to prove. So maybe the question isn't, how can I win? Maybe the real question is, what if I stop trying and still win anyway? And maybe that's not just possible. Maybe that's the real definition of power. What if everything you've been taught about winning was always pointing you away from your true edge? Not because you weren't capable, but because you were conditioned to seek power in motion, in volume, in effort. And yet, the kind of power that endures, the kind that shifts rooms and rewrites narratives, moves differently. It flows beneath the surface, quiet, unseen, unshaken. That's the hidden edge. It doesn't need to be earned, only remembered. It lives in the moments you choose not to react, in the silence you hold when others rush to speak, in the way you show up without explanation, without apology, without shrinking. It is not a technique. It is a return to presence, to clarity, to that timeless wisdom within you that never needed permission to exist. The gravity of who you are when you stop trying to be more. This is not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring so deeply about your peace, your energy, your truth, that you no longer offer them in desperation. You offer them in alignment. Because when power is effortless, it becomes magnetic. So if this stirred something in you, some whisper beneath the noise, maybe you're closer to your edge than you think. Let me know below. I'm listening. And if this kind of presence resonates with you, if this journey into quiet power speaks your language, stay connected. Subscribe. Stay near. There's more waiting on the other side of silence.